Welcome to the 10th grade Reading and Language Arts 6-Week at a Glance. My name is Natanya Huff, and I'll be your presenter. To access this presentation, follow the bit.ly link provided. Click the How to Log in to PowerSchool link if you experience difficulty logging in. At the conclusion of this presentation, you'll be asked to complete a survey to let us know how we did using the link provided. Okay, let's get started. Let's start with the literacy framework. The literacy framework centers around the concept of gradual release. This begins with the teacher modeling, or the I do of a given skill, demonstrating for students how to engage with the content. Examples of modeling may include annotating a text for genre-specific characteristics, using context clues to determine the meaning of a word, or using an outline to organize ideas for a writing task. Following modeling, teachers facilitate the we do or the collaborative work. This may consist of teachers directly engaging in the work with students or students leading the work themselves as teachers guide and redirect as needed. After having had opportunities to practice, students will complete the you do, in which they work independently to demonstrate their knowledge of the skill. We'll first start by taking a look at the Year at a Glance Placemat. You'll notice that newsela is now listed as an intervention resource. We'll highlight some of the many features of newsela later on in this presentation. The YAG is where you'll find all of the TEKS covered throughout the unit, as well as the Common Assessment TEKS. You may notice that all of the unit TEKS listed may not explicitly be listed in the daily lesson plans. This is because many are recurring and are addressed throughout the learning. You'll also find the unit readings. In addition, you'll also find independent readings. These readings are only available online, but are topic related from varied genres and do not include additional activities. Please take a moment to review the remainder of your second 6 weeks YAG. Let's take a look at the graphic to better understand how components of the daily lesson plans are aligned. Learning begins with referring to the TEKS to first set a learning goal, then creating success criteria to allow for actionable steps to be taken towards accomplishing our learning goal. And finally, the creation of our DOL, or demonstration of learning, which is used as a measurable evaluative tool that lets the teacher as well as the student know how successful they were in demonstrating the skill. To practice the skill, the daily lesson plans include rigorous multi-genre readings that allow multiple opportunities for TEKS to be taught. Strands 1, 2, and 3 include recurring TEKS that are embedded, often daily, throughout the unit through practices such as annotating vocabulary, asking questions, and drawing conclusions. In Unit 2, students will consider the essential question: how does our point of view shape what we think we know? To do this, students will read an essay, a short story, and a poem, and examine an infographic that all challenge them to look at things from varying viewpoints. They'll analyze these texts to better understand the theme of the unit, as well as how the author constructed text to achieve specific purposes. They'll draw on these ideas, as well as the author's stylistic choices to engage in the writing process, to compose an explanatory essay in which they respond to the prompt, how can life events change how we see things? Through the practice of talk, read, talk, write, students will work collaboratively to research and discuss a range of theme-related topics to generate ideas for their essays while building upon research skills. At the conclusion of the unit, students will be able to assess these skills during the common assessment that has been aligned to address TEKS covered throughout the unit. This process ensures that both tested and untested TEKs are treated equally and covered throughout the unit. Now let's take a look at our SWAG goals. Our learning objective for Unit 2 SWAG is, I can examine the Unit 2 curriculum to understand how text, TEKs, and weekly lessons align to provide impactful instruction. Our success criteria, I can examine the YAG Placemat for key components of the unit. I can utilize the 30-day calendar to understand objectives of the unit. I can make connections between the TEKs outlined on the Common Assessment Blueprint and TEKs covered in weekly lessons. And our DOL, or Demonstration of Learning, I can verbally summarize the instructional purposes of Unit 2. As you begin to plan for Unit 2, you will need to access the TEKs Year at a Glance Placemat, Unit Calendar, ACP Blueprint, Common Assessment Blueprint, and Daily Lesson Plans. These resources can be found in PowerSchool in the English 2 course. For more help on logging into PowerSchool and enrolling in a course, follow the links provided in this slide. Now let's take a look at an example LO, SC, and DOL from Unit 2. You will see a slide like the one shown for each day of instruction. You should notice the student-centered I can statements that encourage students to take ownership of their learning. These statements are intended to be clear and concise to help students, teachers, and administrators understand learning goals. The Power DOL in Week 3 has been carefully crafted to align to the TEKs covered in Weeks 1 through 3. Now we'll take a look at several slides from the daily lesson plans to better understand how TEKs, texts, and DOLs are aligned to instruction. In Week 1, the students will read an explanatory essay in which the author gives a first-hand account of a solar eclipse she witnessed in Washington State in 1979. Although the author's purpose is to explain, she does so using key literary elements including imaginative diction, descriptive language, and syntax. Students will use this text as a mentor text when composing their own explanatory essay. On slide 18 of Week 1, you'll see that the highlighted TEKs appearing both in this lesson as well as on the Common Assessment are 4F and 7DI. 4F is a comprehension TEK from Strand 2, in which students make inferences and use evidence to support understanding. 7DI is a multi-genre TEK from Strand 4, in which students analyze characteristics and structural elements of informational texts such as clear thesis, relevant supporting evidence, pertinent examples, and a conclusion. These TEKs combined require the student to analyze an informational text to better understand the author's purpose. To do this, the teacher will model how to annotate the text for features that help students understand the central message and reveal the author's purpose. For the DOL, students will answer questions in which they analyze the author's purpose, audience, and message. On day 3, students will begin the writing process to compose an explanatory essay in response to the prompt, "How can life events change how we see things?" Take a moment to look at the highlighted TEKs. 9C is a recurring composition TEK from Strand 6, in which students are expected to revise drafts to improve clarity, development, organization, style, diction, and sentence effectiveness. Each time students write throughout the unit, they should make attempts to improve upon their writing through a process of revision. Now take a moment to skim the lesson in the I Do slides shown. Teachers will model for students how to plan their essay using the graphic organizer. Students will be expected to make revisions throughout the planning stage as needed. Finally, take a look at the DOL. Students will be evaluated on their ability to clearly articulate planning for their essay. In week 2, students will read a short story in which the reader has an accident and is trapped between two worlds of dream and reality and struggles to differentiate the two. In this way, there are two parallel plots in which the details provided reveal historical and cultural settings. Take a moment to look at the highlighted teaks. You'll notice 4F, the inferencing teak, appears again in addition to 5D, 6B, and 6C. 5D is a response teak from Strand 3, in which students are expected to paraphrase and summarize text in ways that maintain meaning and logical order. 6B is a multiple genre teak from Strand 4, in which students are expected to analyze how authors develop complex yet believable characters, including archetypes, through historical and cultural settings and events. And finally, 6C is also a multiple genre teak from Strand 4, in which students are expected to analyze isolated scenes and their contribution to the success of the plot as a whole. Take a moment to skim the lesson in the We Do slide shown. You'll notice that students are analyzing the first plot for details and descriptive language that reveal the setting. Now take a look at the DOL. Do you see how the TEACS lesson and the DOL align? On day 6, students will continue the writing process to draft their explanatory essay. Take a moment to look at the highlighted teaks. You'll notice that 9C, the recurring revision teak, appears again. Now take a moment to skim the lesson in the I Do slide shown. Teachers will model for students how to draft their essay using a student sample. Students will be expected to make revisions throughout the drafting stage as needed. Finally, take a look at the DOL. Students will be evaluated on their ability to clearly articulate an appropriate response to the prompt. In week 3, the students will analyze an infographic in which the author draws statistical conclusions about the world as if it were made of 100 people. Take a moment to look at the highlighted teaks. You'll notice that these same teaks appeared in week 2, requiring students to make inferences and summarize and/or paraphrase. Now take a moment to skim the lesson in the I Do slide shown. The questions students will ask themselves require them to analyze, summarize, and/or paraphrase the data to come up with their own interpretations. Finally, let's look at the DOL. Do you see how they all align? On day 9, students will continue the writing process to revise and edit their explanatory essay. Take a moment to look at the highlighted teaks. You'll notice that 9C, the recurring revision teak, appears again, as well as 9D5. 9D5 is an editing teak in Strand 6, in which students are expected to edit drafts using standard English conventions, including punctuation, including commas, semicolons, colons, dashes, and parentheses to set off phrases and clauses as appropriate. Throughout the unit, do nows have focused on setting off phrases and clauses with commas. Now take a moment to skim the lesson in the I Do slide shown. Teachers will model for students how to revise their essay using the revision guide and the student sample. Students will be expected to make revisions and edits to their own essays as needed. Finally, take a look at the DOL. Students will be evaluated on their ability to revise and edit their own explanatory essays. In week 5, after students have analyzed the poem Mirror, in which the speaker struggles with self-perception as she ages, they will work collaboratively to complete a mini research project. Take a moment to look at the highlighted teaks. You'll notice that this same TEK appeared in week 2 and week 3, requiring students to summarize and or paraphrase. Now take a moment to skim the lesson in the You Do slide shown. Students will follow the same steps provided in the group activity to conduct their own research to be included in their explanatory essays. Finally, let's look at the DOL. Do you see how they all align? On the final writing day, students will publish their essays. Although no highlighted TEKs appear, this is an opportunity for students to revisit areas of greatest need before publishing their final papers. In addition to properly citing sources, students are expected to publish an explanatory essay that includes genre-specific characteristics and demonstrate all stages of the writing process. In week 6, our flex week, teachers may refer to these HMH resources located at the bottom of the Discover page for small group or individual review, reteach, and extension opportunities. As stated at the beginning of this presentation, the DISD has acquired newsela as yet another instructional resource. Take a moment to review some of the newsela features. To continue exploring all newsela has to offer, pause this video and visit Clever to log into the newsela website. To enhance the remote learning as well as the in-classroom learning experience, the district now has Nearpod. Take a moment to review some of the Nearpod features. To continue exploring Nearpod, pause this video and visit Clever to log in to the Nearpod website. Now that you've seen the 6 weeks at a glance, it's time to plan. If you haven't already, log into PowerSchool to access your daily lesson plans. Take a moment to explore the unit and find at least 6 items that fit these descriptors. Remember, it's our job to sell the unit to students as well as anticipate and plan for any parts that may present challenges unique to your classroom. So have fun and make it your own. Now that you're ready to teach Unit 2, it's time for your DOL. Imagine your RLA appraiser is walking out to the car at the same time you are after work. He or she asks you what you are about to teach next 6 weeks. You want to be confident, so you give him or her a summary and the story of the unit. What do you say? Although this is a hypothetical scenario, you will be expected by students, parents, peers, and administrators to know your content. So get pumped because you are now equipped to teach Unit 2. This now concludes our Unit 2 swag. If you have any questions about this unit or another unit, please email me, Natanya Huff, your English 2 instructional specialist. For other PD offerings, visit the announcements page in the message tab in PowerSchool or check the RLA Google community page. Don't forget to register for the fall conference at the link provided. And last but not least, let us know how we're doing by completing the PD survey. Thank you for joining us for another Reading and Language Arts PD session. We hope that you are prepared and empowered to teach Unit 2. Thank you.